Hey everyone, Dylan here with the Impact Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by ImpactDogCrates.com. It's the only dog crate that does not suck and is guaranteed to last a lifetime. I'm super excited about today's guest. Originally met her over this past summer. Peyton, who was on our first podcast, him and I went and did a photo shoot with her. From the moment I met her and her dogs, I could tell she was very involved in her dogs' lives. Obviously puts them a very high priority as well. Today, we'll be sitting down with Katie Woodin. Welcome to the show, Katie.
Thanks for having me. I'm so stoked to be here. I was literally thinking on my way up here, like, it's so cool that I get to do a podcast. This is like something I can do and like check it off my bucket list. So thanks for having me.
So have you done one before?
No.
Don't worry, I haven't either. I've only been on the host side, so I don't know the feeling either. So we'll get through it together.
Awesome.
So I want to jump right into the doggos. Obviously, they're a big part of your life. You're in your husband's life, I guess I should say. Let's start with Pepper. You know, what breed is Pepper and what made you get Pepper?
So she is a classic mutt. She's a little bit of everything. She's about 50% pit bull, which actually surprises people because she's pretty petite and she's got the floppy ears and kind of a narrower snout, but that's what her DNA test said. And then she's got about 10% border collie and 10% dachshund, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I would not guess that looking at her.
I know.
And the pit bull throws me off a little bit too.
Mm-hmm. Because you've seen her in
Yeah.
person a couple times now.
Yeah.
So it is a little weird. I tell people that and they're like, what? And then there's moments where she like gets like a little bit like defensive or aggressive when she's playing. And I'm like,
Sure.
oh, her bully is showing right now.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are her main components, but she's got just a little bit of everything pretty much.
Yeah. How old was she when you got her?
So we adopted her from the Humane Society, and she was about 3 months. We don't know her exact birthday, so that's an estimation, but we picked her birthday as November 13th, so she's coming up on her third birthday.
What's the plans for her third birthday?
I don't know. I haven't thought about it yet.
So do you do like the you know, like you see on Instagram, the dog cakes or anything like that?
My sister-in-law actually is really good at making like dog treats and stuff like that. And I have not tried to yet, but I have aspirations to do that in the future. So maybe this year will be the year.
Future reel coming.
Yeah, for sure.
So was it planned out to get a dog when you guys went in to meet Pepper?
Yes and no. So we had been talking, we'd been married about a year and we're like, we really want a dog. That was a big priority. And it was just kind of like the right time and the right dog. We knew we wanted to adopt from a shelter, and we just went to the Humane Society on our lunch break on a Friday, and there was a dog that we had seen online, and I thought it was at this shelter. Turns out it wasn't. It was at a different shelter, but since we were there, they were like, hey, we have this litter of puppies that just became available today. So my husband and I went back, and we met the puppies. And so Pepper was the one that like crawled into my husband's lap and just kind of settled in.
Oh.
And so we were kind of done for at that
Yeah.
point.
Especially when she's only 3 months old and she comes and just snuggles
she was
right up.
so cute. Oh my gosh. So she showed a lot of comfort around us right away. And she was the most calm out of all the puppies. We wanted a very like even-keeled dog as much as we could. Mm-hmm. So she just kind of chilled out, and so that's kind of how we landed on her.
So was she the first puppy or first dog at the Humane Society you guys had met then?
Yeah, so this was our first trip to any shelter looking for a dog, and she and one of her sisters were paired together, and then the other two were in a different kennel, and there was already people with them, so we just met two of the sisters. And so it was between Pepper and that puppy, and between the two, she was really calm. And then the other two puppies also seemed a little bit crazy. So it was just kind of the
Not
clear
looking
winner.
for crazy?
No, we're very like chill people, so we weren't looking for a super crazy high energy puppy.
Makes sense. What was it like training her in the very beginning when she was a puppy?
Well, I have to give major kudos to my husband because we got Pepper, and then about 2 weeks later, he went in for shoulder surgery. It was a scheduled surgery, and from an old sports injury. And he did, so he was laid up for about 6 weeks, and he did all of her potty training, and he just spent all day with her because I was still going to work every day. So he just took care of her for the first 6 weeks basically with us, and then I would get home and I would get her out for a walk. And I wish I could say we had a really good plan for training her as a puppy, but we really didn't. Like, I didn't really know anything about training puppies or dogs for that matter, so I really just hopped on YouTube, found some videos that were helpful on things I wanted to work with her on. So it was all just really like kind of trial by fire, but she has such an amazing personality. I truly believe that we lucked out with her because we didn't know anything. So much could have gone wrong, and Absolutely. It didn't go wrong. So I'm really thankful that she's turned out the way she has, because we really can't take all the credit for her as a dog, because she really just is one of those, I think they're once in a lifetime dogs for sure.
And what's your husband's name?
Joe.
Kudos to Joe for potty training in the beginning.
This podcast is not sponsored by Joe.
No, definitely. Well, Joe, if you want to sponsor, you know how to get a hold of us, or Katie does. It's too funny. Speaking about her qualities, what are some of your favorite qualities? I mean, obviously you mentioned she's a little bit more laid back, chill, I think was another word you used. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else that you love about her qualities?
I'd say like she's so good with kids, and like we don't have any children ourselves, but we have tons of nieces and nephews, and she's just always been super gentle with them and plays well with them. And she's also just really good with other dogs and is pretty much just down for anything. Like she's a very confident dog, and which is really ironic because we got her right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So a lot of puppies that came out of the pandemic have a lot of behavioral issues because everything was shut down.
Oh, we know.
Yeah, I'm preaching to the choir. Yeah. So I'm just so thankful that she came out of that and is a well-rounded dog. And I think I love most just she's a very cuddly dog. She just wants to be on the couch with us. She just wants to be close and snuggle. And she's really small, and she'll tuck herself into a ball, and she just loves to hang out with us. And she's honestly just easy to take anywhere, which is a huge blessing because...
Seems like you guys are kind of always on the go.
Yeah. We travel a lot, like shorter trips. We're not going like across the country all the time, but we take a lot of short trips on weekends, and she's always just been along for the ride and just copes well with pretty much any situation that we put her in.
She's kind of happy to be there and happy to be with you guys.
Yep.
That's awesome.
She just wants to be where we are.
And then there's Benny.
Yeah.
Was it your idea or your husband's idea to get a second dog?
Well, something we talked about, and we both decided we wanted to get a second dog. So Pepper was almost 2, or we'd had her for a while. And we're
so it wasn't like right after you got her thing. She's probably fairly trained, I would assume, at that point. So you're pretty confident at that point with her.
Yeah, she was definitely like a very solid dog. Like I knew we could bring another dog in, and she could be like a good leader and a good example. I didn't know what we were getting ourselves into, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Anyways, we had decided to get a second dog, and we were kind of keeping our eye out for just a good situation. We'd been looking for a few months, and my husband saw an email go out about this family who was rehoming a 1-year-old yellow lab for free, and it was just not a good fit for them. They were moving to a new house. They needed him gone kind of ASAP. Gotcha. So he read me the email, and he's just like, let's go get him. And I was like, okay, let's do it.
So just so I can remember this correctly, Pepper was on a lunch break. You guys just randomly went to the Humane Society. Your husband just gets an email, and then you guys are on your way to go get Benny.
Basically, yeah. We, within like 15, 20 minutes of getting the email, he had messaged with the owner and arranged for us to go over there. So we grabbed Pepper and went in the car and went over to meet him. And yeah, so it was very spur of the moment, even though we had been talking about getting a dog.
How was the first introduction? Like when you guys met Benny, I guess was his name Benny as well? Yeah,
it was actually Benny.
Okay.
And so Pepper's original name was Mulan. They were all named after Disney princesses, and I was like, that's got to go. So we named her Pepper, and then Benny, his name was Benny, and once we met him, I was like, that name just kind of fits him. I kind of like that name.
Yeah.
So we walk into the house, and it's just kind of chaotic energy coming from this dog. And I expected that. I've been around tons of labs, and I wasn't fazed by that. But we were sitting down on the floor talking with the owner, and I could just tell that, like, this dog was, like, pretty anxious. Mm-hmm. And it's so hard to know off of one situation
Absolutely.
how a dog actually is, but he was crazy. He was jumping up all over me, and like in my mind I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna nip that in the bud.
Yeah.
Like, no jumping, and
Yeah.
but I'm just trying to talk to the owner and get a feel for it. And so Pepper's out in the car, and we're inside with the owners and Benny, and then eventually we take him out for them to meet outside.
Yeah.
And you know, Pepper did great. She loves all dogs, and Benny was just stoked to meet her, and so that was good. And then yeah, we just kind of talked with them and explained our situation and our life, and like, hey, we think we could give him a great home, and like, if you guys are comfortable, we'd love to just take him off your hands tonight.
Yeah.
And so yeah, then about half an hour later, he's coming home with us.
Oh, wow.
And then
So did you guys just kind of decide in the moment together, or did you and Joe talk about it like privately without the owners there? Or?
I don't remember exactly, but I think the expectation going into their house was that if we just didn't have any major issues with it, we would take him home. So kind of the expectation was we'd bring him home with us. Which I'm not saying that that's the smartest thing to do. I feel like if I could do it differently, I would. But there wasn't like a big like powwow about it. It was just kind of like, yeah.
But to your point, before he had got that email, you guys have been talking about it for a few months.
Right.
So it's not like it was just totally spur of the moment.
Right.
I kind of made it sound like it was because he gets an email and you guys are on your way to go get him. And
yeah. I mean, it was spur of the moment, but also not spur of the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What was it like, training Benny? I know you mentioned he was kind of crazy, jumping all over him. That's not the dog, or not Benny that I know. Mm-hmm. When we first met, he was pretty darn calm. He was mm-hmm. shaking around and I was all excited, but mm-hmm. definitely not jumping on, Peyton or myself, or I even had my son there that day and he's not, jumping on him either.
Yeah.
Listens very, very well. So what was that like, because with Pepper, I'd imagine it had to be a little different. She was a puppy, so she didn't necessarily have a ton of bad habits I couldn't imagine, mm-hmm. whereas it sounds like Benny possibly did. What was mm-hmm. What was it like between the two?
Well, I'll try and keep this short. So essentially we brought Benny home, and we did bring his crate home. They said he was crate trained.
Sure.
And I say that in quotes because it was obvious that the crate did not mean anything in a positive way for Benny.
Gotcha.
It was like what most people would say is like a prison for the dog. That's kind of how
Gotcha.
he viewed it. So we got home, and he was just whining and yelping and just throwing a fit, and I just could not, I spent hours trying to calm him down. I literally, that first night, I slept on the floor right next to his kennel, and I had my hand through the slats of his crate, and I had my hand on his paw because mm-hmm. it was the only thing that remotely calmed him down. He was just so anxious, and I'm like, it's the first night, we'll cut him some slack.
Yeah.
And
it's a very new environment for him.
Yeah, I mean, I can't expect him to be an angel at all, but something I started to think this is maybe indicative of bigger problems. Yeah. And so the next couple days, I kind of figured out that this dog, for one, he just he didn't even know his name. His name meant nothing to him. Oh, he didn't know he didn't know sit. He didn't know lie down. He didn't know any commands.
He's roughly about a year old.
Yeah, he's time. Over a year old. He was still healing from his neuter. It was, so he's going through a lot physically, I'd imagine, but also it was just so obvious that no one had ever put any time into this dog.
He's very neglected, it sounds like.
Yeah, his nails were so long, and his quicks were so long, mm-hmm. meaning they don't get trimmed very often, and that's very indicative of just a neglected dog. So after having him for a couple days, I was like, I need help, because he had just become such a source of anxiety for me, but it was to the point where I just didn't even know how to begin with him.
Yeah.
I just needed direction and I needed help. And so,
which I think is big of you to realize, because I think a lot of people are, I don't know if maybe ego's maybe not the right word to use, but they can't set that aside and ask for help. Mm-hmm. So I think that's massive to actually, find the help you need to help him ultimately.
Yeah, thanks. It was definitely a move of desperation. I definitely can be the person who's like, I'll figure it out for myself. Yeah. But it really was so bad that I was just like, I can't. So I looked. Oh, another note is we were about to go out of town to go to the Oregon coast for vacation for like a week. And we were bringing Pepper with us. And I just knew we could not take this dog with us.
Yeah.
It's like, he will be nothing but a nightmare. So it was all the stress of, we're going on a trip. What do I do with this dog? How do I help this dog? I don't even know where to start. And at this point, I had done a fair bit of research into like balance training methods. Like, I was a huge like fan of like Tom Davis videos, and I know you guys are a huge fan of him too.
Absolutely.
So I just knew I really wanted to take that route when I found a trainer. So I found one locally, and I called her up, and like I was at my office working, and I'm just like, you gotta help me with this. Like, this is my name, this is the dog, this is the situation. Like, I just need help. We're about to go out of town, and I don't know what to do. Yeah. And so
what's her name?
Her name's Jen. She runs Prana Canine in the Moscow Pullman area. Fabulous. Like, just works, miracle worker. Absolute amazing lady. So thankful for her. Anyways, I contacted her, explained the situation, and then she recommended that he do a board and train with her. And unfortunately, we didn't have the time for her to come and like do a formal assessment. It was just kind of like, I needed to get him to her house.
Yeah.
So she came and she picked him up, and it was the day before we left town, and I just like breathed this huge like sigh of relief of, oh, we can figure this out.
Yeah.
So we go on our vacation, and he ended up staying with her for about 3 weeks. So originally it was going to be 1 week, and we just kind of added on more time to it, because getting that momentum going with the training was just so important. And she was like, I think he would really benefit from more time.
She could stay so consistent with him too while he's there as well.
Exactly. So he stayed there for about 3 weeks, and then he came home, and he was just a completely different dog. Like, he had the ability to be calm, which he just did not have when we got him. There was no way that he would ever calm down. And the fact that he could come in the house, she worked on place with him, and he went to his place and he like laid down, and I'm like, wow, like, this is amazing. Yeah. And in my mind, I saw that money as well invested, whether or not we kept him or not, because we didn't pay anything for him. And I'm like, well, we're paying for him now, we're paying for the trainer. And if we still come to the conclusion that he just like will not work for us, then, we did everything we could. I just wanted to be responsible. I
was going to say, to your point, you guys did everything you could, and you bettered him regardless. Mm-hmm. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So basically, he came home, and it was just, she gave me about legit 70 pages worth of like information and homework and like explaining all the things, which is great for me, because I'm like, I can do it. You just got to tell me what I need to do. Yeah. So, I printed it out, and I like read through it so many times. And for the first few months, life just revolved around getting this dog to understand how to function as a dog in a house with manners. So.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm. And how was that time with your husband? Was same thing, super, super helpful like he was with Pepper as well?
Yeah. He works more hours than I do, so I usually end up doing most of the training. I also just really enjoy it. Mm-hmm. I enjoy training the dogs, and like, he knows I enjoy it. more than he does.
Yeah.
So
when it shows too when you're with him.
Yeah.
I noticed that right away when we first met.
Yeah, he definitely put in his time as well, because we also just didn't have a bond with this dog. So we're trying to train him and build a bond with him, because he doesn't know us and we don't know him. So he put in his time as well, and it was a group effort for sure. So when I say I did this, I did that, I'm definitely like not giving credit to him, because he was also there helping and everything.
Yeah. Something I did want to ask, and I think you probably kind of answered it, so maybe it's redundant to ask, but and maybe the answer would be your trainer that you had found, but I was more wondering if there's something specific that helped you with the transition of going from, having just Pepper to having Pepper and Benny, and then, helping basically Benny, like you said, basically have manners and a well-behaved dog in a household.
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing is just having clear boundaries with both of them. Pepper's allowed to do things that Benny isn't, because Pepper is a different dog, and that's just the way it is. So just enforcing boundaries, even if they're different boundaries, is key. I mean, when Benny came home, he was either in his kennel, he was on his place, or he was on a leash under my control. He had no freedom. He had no ability to do anything he wanted to without like direct supervision. And
which really was probably very structure for him, because he wasn't used to having any kind of structure.
Yeah.
So I would imagine, and today it shows that helped him a ton to be able to have that structure, to know what's okay, what's not okay. I'm sure his freedom's changed a little bit now.
Yeah.
Like you said, not the same as Pepper, but
yeah.
I can't imagine he's still on a leash in the house.
No. But I will say, there's occasionally he has a day where he's just being kind of a jerk, and I'm like, all right, we're going to put a leash on. We're just going to go back to the basics here of like, you need to remember that those things are not allowed, and like there are boundaries, and you're not allowed to do that. So there's every once in a while, there's a day where I throw the leash on him in the house, and I have him do a lot more just being in it down, not going where he wants to. He's not allowed on the couch. He's not allowed on any furniture, and Pepper is, but it like doesn't seem to bother him too much. But at the same time, I never want him to just get so comfortable that he starts pushing those boundaries. Yeah. So there's days where he will push boundaries, and then that's like, I'll
kind
put
of
a tab or a leash. Yeah, need a reminder of like, nope, that's not allowed.
Makes sense.
And he's very quick to kind of snap into gear, because he loves working. I mean, he's a lab. He needs to have a job. So him, like when he's got a leash on, he's like, "Ooh, I've got a job," and that just helps him and his behavior just fall in line.
Does Pepper feel that same way when she has a leash on?
I would say Pepper is like one of those dogs who it just does so well off leash. Her relationship with the leash is not the same as Benny's, because Benny, it's all about like communication with him, and Pepper, it's like she's off leash unless we're in a place where dogs need to be leashed, basically. So, and I, going back, I probably would have developed that differently with her, but she's also so obedient and has like earned that freedom.
Yeah.
So for her, a leash is like if we're on a structured walk around town, like she's just kind of like, yeah, I'm on a leash, walking in a heel, like I'm just doing my thing. She's very gratified by her environment, and Benny's gratified by me as his handler. Okay. So like their motivations are very, very different. So the leash is his connection to me, and Pepper's like, I just want to like sniff and go hunt birds and stuff.
It's super interesting to hear how their motivation is so different within the same household and really the same handler as well. That's awesome. What are their favorite activities to do? Are there any that they love together? Are there any separate ones that one will do and the other one won't do?
Yeah, I would say Pepper doesn't love going in stores or just like being in a indoor environment. Like she loves being outside, but if I take her to a store, she's kind of like, why am I here? Penny loves being in stores. Like he loves training in stores, and I have done it with Pepper a lot, but she just isn't wired the same way like he is. He just gets so excited to be there and to do that. So that's like something that's different that they both like to do. She just would rather be outside. He'd rather be working a job somewhere, but I mean, they love swimming. Like, we take them to the water as much as possible. Like, we have a boat and they love being on the boat. And like this summer we were on Lake Coeur d'Alene as much as possible, and they just love being outside. We take them camping with us, and yeah, they just love doing stuff for sure.
Is Benny jumping off the dock yet?
No, but my goal was by like the end of the summer for him to be able to like jump or somehow get off of our boat while we're like anchored somewhere.
Yeah.
So that happened.
Okay.
On our last day with the boat out in September. We were just anchored in this little inlet, and he saw some ducks or some birds, and he was chilling on the sun deck, and then he just kind of like slid down, and then he just like went off and swam after them, and he did that several times.
Oh, wow.
So next summer I'm hoping for great things now that he's figured out he can get off the boat. But I mean, that's just really a product of a dog who was never exposed to anything for the first year of his life. So he is able to build that confidence now, hopefully.
To your point, he wasn't exposed to that stuff, but I've been around plenty of labs throughout my life, and I mean, they normally just bolt. So, and then he's like, I'm like, oh, he's going to go. Oh, no, I guess he's not going.
And I remember you saying to me, you're like, oh, he's going to jump off. I'm like, no, he's not. Trust me, he won't.
And I was like, he looks like he's going to jump, but he did not.
To be fair, those docks at Spring Valley have like that little raised lip. So I just feel like it's hard for any dog to jump off, but you never know. I mean, I would love it if, in the next 10 years I get him to jump off a dock. I'll be super happy. But also like just working on building his confidence. I mean, when I first got him, he was afraid to jump on top of a park bench. Like he would not.
Oh, wow.
Like he was so crippled by everything.
So how did you overcome those things?
He's super food motivated. That's huge. So just giving him tons of high value treats for doing things that are like fairly easy, like
which just ultimately helps him build up his confidence.
Right. So I mean, when we would walk downtown, there's benches all over the place. I just literally have him hop on every single bench. And I mean, at first it was just getting him to put his front paws up on the bench.
Sure.
I reward him for that. I'd mark that and reward it. And so it started with just the front paws. And then after doing that, after he got super comfortable putting his front paws, then he figured out, oh, I can jump on top of this thing, and rewarding that. And so, I mean, I talked about boundaries, but rewarding the behavior you want to see, I mean, is so important for building that confidence and letting them know, hey, you're doing the right thing, you're doing a good job, like keep it up. So he definitely can jump on benches now, and he's down to get on anything he can get his front paws on now.
Okay.
So
he's built up the confidence a lot then.
Yeah, definitely a lot. There's this boulder on this bike path that we take all the time, and it's significantly higher than a park bench, but my goal was like, oh man, I'd love for him to be able to hop on top of it. That took like 2 months because he couldn't get his front paws on the very top.
Oh.
But he needed some momentum to get up
there.
But
he can jump onto it now?
He can now, yes.
Do you have a video of it?
I have a photo. I might have a video.
Okay. So obviously you mentioned you really enjoy handling the dogs. Did you know that before, and like did you grow up with dogs doing that, or was it something that just kind of interested you and then you really took to it?
So Pepper's the first dog that I've ever owned.
Oh, wow.
I did not grow up with dogs in my family. I grew up loving dogs. Like I used to walk dogs for money. Like I would walk neighbors' dogs. I was just that kid that just wanted to pet all the dogs. So I knew I always wanted to have one. So I when I tell you that Pepper was really a trial run for me, like it's very true, really, because I didn't even have a childhood dog to compare anything to. Like the closest thing to a dog that I felt like was mine was my aunt, who has yellow labs, and there's like the yellow lab from when I was a kid that I like still remember to this day. And I remember her tail, the very tip of it was like stained red because she'd thump it against things so hard and it would bleed all the time. Jeez. But she was just such a happy dog.
Sounds like a lab.
I know. But yeah, we didn't grow up with dogs. We had a cat, and that was about it for the pets. So.
What are a couple of things that you struggled with as far as training them in the beginning? Obviously I know you've talked a bit about Benny and the struggles there. Maybe what were some of the struggles with Pepper at first, and how did you overcome those?
I don't remember having a lot of struggles with her because I feel
Joe
like
was doing everything.
I'm
just kidding.
Yes. She actually took forever to be 100% potty trained. She went 80% super quickly, and then like the last 20% took so long. She was like almost a year old, I feel like, before I 100% trusted her not to have an accident. So that was a struggle, but I don't really know what the hurdle was there because I feel like we did that part correctly for sure. And she understood right away what it meant to go outside and do her business. So but I think, honestly, she's just been the dream dog. I don't remember any specific struggles with her at all, or struggles that I had in training her. And I think part of that was like my ignorance. Like if I trained her as a puppy now, I probably would have a lot more insight into my struggles and her struggles. But again, I was very ignorant. So
fair enough. So I know that both of them were crate trained before. Of course, you guys had Impact Dog Crates. Obviously, this episode is sponsored by ImpactDogCrates.com. What was it like to crate train them? I imagine it's, you talked a little bit about Benny, and the first night you had your hand in the crate, holding his paw. So obviously that was probably a little different. What was it like training each of them to be crate trained, and what was the reasoning behind crate training them?
Yeah, so with Pepper, even with my limited knowledge about training dogs and what correct behavior looked like, I knew that having a crate trained dog was a good thing for so many reasons. Them just being alone in the house, for starters. Also, if they're lost and get returned to a shelter, like being able to be in a kennel or a crate in the shelter, or if there's an accident, it's just like I could go on and on about it. I knew it was important. I didn't know all the reasons, but I wanted to prioritize that. So the first night that we had Pepper, she slept in the crate. We had like the puppy divider. I researched like how big it should be.
Yeah.
And honestly, she only cried a little bit the first 2 nights, and then it was like a breeze. She didn't need to go out to use the restroom at night after like the first week. Like,
she really was the dream dog and still is, huh?
I keep telling you. Yeah, she really was. So it was just, I made it a comfortable place for her to be. Even when the pandemic hit and I came and worked from home, and like we both were home, I still put her in the crate for the normal amount of time that she would be in there if we were gone at work, because I didn't want her to relapse and be used to not being in the crate when we did go back to work. So that is one thing that I'm like, wow, thank goodness I had the common sense to do that, because that could have been a disaster if I had just let her do her own thing. So prioritize that even when we worked from home, and then when we went back to work, it wasn't
same thing as normal.
Yeah, it was just life as normal. So yeah, I don't have a lot of impactful moments with her crate training, but for Benny, it was all about the reconditioning of the crate. So like I said, he viewed it as a prison. I believe in he's had 2 previous homes. He's had 2 previous homes before us, and both times he was overcrated. And we had to teach him, this is a good place to be. It doesn't mean that we're leaving you. So we had to crate him when we were home a lot, so he didn't associate it with us leaving. We had to, give him really good enrichment treats while he was in there to create a positive association. Like, there's so many things we had to do. But again, having Pepper there, who, she loves her crate. She goes in it all the time, just on her own. And having them crated together at the same time, I feel like really improved his perception of the crate. It's like, oh, Pepper's in hers and I'm in mine. Okay, we're doing this. And then they would come out at the same time. So I feel like she really was able to help him.
She's kind of leading by example, it sounds like.
Exactly.
He would see her go in there and like it's totally normal, so he's going to go in his.
Yeah, I remember when he finally learned like the command is kennel. I say that and then they go in. And I remember when he learned that, I sent a video of him going into it to my trainer. And she's just like, did you think that you would ever get to that point with him? Because he just hated it so much.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I didn't. But I mean, you give him some steak and you'd be surprised at what he'll do for it.
Very food motivated.
Yes.
It's too funny. With having them both crate trained, what do you like about the collapsible impact dog crates you guys have?
Well, we've already kind of talked about this, but we do travel a lot. So having something portable is really, really important to us. We just recently were at the Oregon coast for a vacation for a week, and being able to throw those in the car. And we're at a pet-friendly Airbnb, but if we leave the house and we can't take them with us, we want them to be safe and secure while we're gone. So having the collapsible crates are just so nice. Just having the peace of mind when we're gone and they're in a new environment, knowing that they're secure, won't destroy anything, won't get into any trouble. And again, they just like being in them. So
yeah, and it's their space too.
It is their space.
They're in a new environment, but it's still their kennel.
Exactly. That's, I think, one of the most underrated points of crate training is just you're literally taking their home or their bedroom with them, and it adds that level of comfort when they're in the new environment.
Wild card question that wasn't on here. What are your thoughts on the Impact Orthopedic Dog Bed? You were probably, I bet you were the second or third person to get one.
Oh, that's so special.
Yeah.
So because Benny's not allowed on the furniture, I do prioritize him having a nice bougie bed, right? And he had one before, but it didn't have the sides on it that yours does. And when I saw your design, I was like, ooh, that would be super awesome for him. So I've been really impressed at how just it's held up, because I mean, he's on there a lot and he is in all manner of positions, and he'll move around a lot on there, and it's just held up really well. I've washed it several times and it's really easy to disassemble and reassemble. And yeah, I've been super impressed by the quality, and especially like the foam. The foam is super nice. Like I would totally sleep on it.
Cool. I love to hear that.
Yeah.
It's good, honest feedback. You know, we spend a bunch of time in researching and trying to get the right material, the right foam, all that good stuff. But, you know, obviously until it goes to market, we don't really know.
Right.
You know, we can test it with our personal animals and things like that. But until, you know, we actually have it in consumers' hands, it's hard to say. So that's awesome feedback.
I would even say that like it makes him want to go on it more. Like in my head, keeping like a mental tally, he often puts himself on his place himself, but since we've gotten that bed, I would say he goes there even more.
Wow,
which
that's
means
awesome.
He just loves it. So.
Yeah, it's comfortable for him.
Yeah.
Very cool. Getting a little bit away from the dogs, more about you. I know you do a lot of photography, or you did in the past. What did you used to shoot? What's it like shooting with Pepper and Benny now? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? What's your favorite time of day to shoot? Talk to me about photography.
Oh, this is like something I love talking about just as much as my dogs probably. I got into photography about 15 years ago, so around 2008. And I, at the time, was doing a lot of mountain bike racing. And so I'm from Northern California, and that's like a really big sport there. And professionally, like there's a lot of professionals who come there to race and whatnot. So I was in the scene already, and then I somehow got looped into being a photographer for races and festivals. There's some really big events that happen in the mountain biking scene in California, and I've been able to go and like photograph those. So starting out,
prior experience in photography before you got looped into that?
No, so I got into it in like 2008. I like saved up, bought my camera, and like this is like before Peter McKinnon was on YouTube. Like, so there weren't a lot of like tutorials or things at my disposal. So I just bought books and read blogs, and like, that's how I learned. And then I went out and I just literally took pictures of everything.
Figured out what worked and what didn't.
Yeah. I learned all the settings. I learned, you know, basic rules of thumb, but I mostly just believed in the power of practicing and repetition. So that's how I got into just photography in general. And then I would say in 2009, is when the mountain biking events started. So I got into, kind of more the sport shooting. And that's, I really enjoyed that. It's very intense, high energy, but it's just really exciting. And you have to be so mindful of logos and who the it people are. Like there's so many things, and you have to just be so many places in a short amount of time, and it's very hectic, but it's kind of like a high. Like I loved being there in that environment. So I did that for a few years, and then I stopped kind of pursuing it end of high school. I just got busy. I knew I didn't want to pursue it as a career because I just really liked doing kind of the side gigs or just doing it as a hobby.
Okay.
I guess it was during college. I did some like rugby games during college. I shot some of those, and that just felt like getting back together with an old friend. It was just like, oh, like I love this environment. But again, it's not something that I've ever really pursued full time. And then when we got Pepper, I was like, I'm going to make a dog Instagram because I don't want to spam all of my friends on my personal Instagram and then lose all my friends.
Yeah, because nobody wants to see just a bunch of pictures of dogs, right?
Exactly. So I created the dog Instagram, and then that's when I got into kind of the more portraiture and just a very different style, like wide open aperture, like very like artsy. Not that sports isn't artsy, it's just a very, very different kind of style.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed getting to just no pressure experiment with like this style that I didn't really do before.
Yeah.
It was all about logos, key people, and like it was all about information and less about art.
And the right exact moment when they were doing whatever jump or move or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Like
versus with Pepper and Benny, it's like very cool setting.
Right.
They're hanging out looking cute.
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, it's cool when I scroll back to like old pictures that I first took. I was like, oh wow, like I have changed so much in just like the hobby aspect and what I like. I've changed a lot of like the presets that I use. Like I make my own presets, so I'm constantly like changing those and evolving those. So it's just been fun that the dogs have helped create this outlet that is a creative outlet for me, and then getting to do things like go on shoots with you guys or other brands that I've gotten to collab with. Like it's just super fun. Like I see it as just a really fun way to be involved with like a community of people and to just have that creative outlet.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cool too to see the dog community and how everybody responds to that. Even like on social media and the relationships you can create because of that content on social media.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I wanted to know your thoughts on picking a breed based on the lifestyle and the way that the dog or the breed actually is versus the cute puppy that people don't necessarily understand. Like for instance a German Shepherd. Mm-hmm. That's a very high drive dog. You have to be prepared for that. Mm-hmm. So I kind of wanted to see your thoughts on basically picking the right breed based on your lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in my limited dog ownership, I definitely think that researching the breed before you get the breed is super important. And I'll take the example of owning a lab. Now, he's a special lab because of his quirks, but still, he's a lab which has a certain type of drive and he has a lot of needs that come along with that drive. And personally, I don't feel like labs make amazing family dogs if you have like little kids, because the lab requires so much like mental stimulation and physical, like it can be a lot to give them the breed fulfillment when you have such a busy life. So you have to know like how to balance that. So like if I had little kids running around, I don't think I could have handled having Benny because I just couldn't have given him what he needed. So
even like now though, you're mentioning like, he likes to work. Mm-hmm. So it's like you mentioned, with kids, you're going to be busy. I have two of them myself. I know how busy it is. So it's like, I can see that not having the time to give him that attention that he needs as well, because he's wanting to work.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I definitely believe that, you should not just pick a dog based off of how they look or because like, oh, my family had this dog growing up. It's like your perception of dogs when you're a little kid and you have like the family dog or like the neighbor's dog. It's like you don't know what all went into that dog to make that dog that way.
Yeah.
And
how much went into it daily.
Right. So I really believe that it's 2022 and there's so much education out there on breeds for free that like there's no reason to be ignorant about what kind of dog you're getting.
Yeah, absolutely. Just do your research.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. What are your thoughts on the responsibilities of owning a dog? I feel like kind of on that same subject in the sense, a lot of people, want the cute puppy, the cute dog. But I don't think everybody fully understands what goes on like behind the scenes. So I guess maybe a better question is for somebody thinking about getting a dog that maybe was in your husband's position before that's never had a dog. Mm-hmm. What is day-to-day life owning a dog?
Well, it's, for me, again, just it's me and my husband. We don't have a lot of other obligations because we don't have children. So I am able to prioritize them. But, for me, it's making sure that they get mental and physical exercise. And some days, like this week, for instance, has just been a crazy week. And it means walking them after dark. It means doing indoor training sessions just to get their mind going. But, like, I don't have time to go take them somewhere else to go train. Like there are definitely days where I know I didn't give them what they needed, but then I'm like, okay, I'm going to do better tomorrow. So I think just for us, owning the dogs means that we need to be okay with saying no to other things to prioritize their needs. So if a friend asks me out for coffee and I'm like, I've got something this evening, I'm not going to have a chance to take the dogs out this evening, which means I have this 1 hour windowed in which to do that. I'm going to say no to my friend because my dogs are my dogs and my responsibility. So it
sounds like a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah, it's
have
definitely
to be willing to sacrifice anyway.
Yes, definitely you have to be willing to sacrifice because they are your responsibility and they are living creatures. It's not a house plant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cats, for instance, are just super self-sufficient. You can leave them alone all day and they're fine. But it's like dogs, they're not people and they're not a houseplant, but they have like their own set of needs, and you have to be willing to sacrifice for that. And if you're not willing to sacrifice, that's totally fine. That just means you shouldn't own a dog. Yeah, in my opinion.
I would think that's something fair to say for sure.
Yeah.
What's it like having an Instagram dog account? I don't personally have one, so I'm interested.
Why not?
Well, to be fair, I don't have dogs because I have 2 kids.
Oh,
I don't have the extra time.
Being so responsible.
See? my 6-year-old son wishes I would get him one, although he's 6 years old and not responsible enough to have a dog yet. So
I think I remember him saying something on our photo shoot when he came along.
Oh, yeah. He would, believe me, he would love to have one. And I'd love to get him one if we had the time. Mm-hmm. We just don't.
Right. When he's a little older and can have some responsibility.
Once he proves that he's able to do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I respect that.
Instagram dog account.
Yes. First of all, I used to laugh at the people who had...
I feel like most people that create them are the people that used to laugh at those people.
Mm-hmm. Like, I used to make fun of people who were obsessed with Subarus. And what do you know? I have a Subaru now. Like, it's just karma. So having an Instagram dog account is... I feel like there's a level of judgment from people that you have to just be okay with, because if you tell your friends or family, I have an Instagram for my dogs, they're kind of like...
Yeah.
So I am so shocked by how many genuine friendships I have made. I mean, you guys, I would not be here without Instagram. Yeah. And I got to meet up with some friends over in Oregon when we were there for our vacation. And
oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So I met her through Instagram, and I mean, she's one of the OGs who followed me like right when I made it. So it's just like so cool that it can be a great community builder. Mm-hmm. And I just enjoy because it's dogs and it's dog content, and it's not all of the, political stuff that's going around like on my personal Instagram. Yeah. Like I don't hardly ever log on that anymore because I'm like, I just get depressed.
Yeah. No, I see that for sure too. Because as you know, I do the Instagram for Impact.
Right.
And I mean, we follow a ton of dog accounts.
Sponsored by Impact Dog Crates.
Exactly. But I like that too, because in comparison to my personal account, like I see a bunch of stuff I just don't want to see. And I don't barely follow anybody on my personal account, but I still get, of course, the ads and all that stuff. But it's interesting. It's something that I didn't realize until I started running the Impact one. It's like, it's just a different feel and like kind of more of a community feel. Everybody's happy. Everybody loves seeing everybody, each other's dogs and stuff like that.
Right.
So I think it's awesome.
Right. I'd say there's way less pressure to be a certain way or to say certain things. Like, it really is just a fun place to be. And most of the people that I connect with on there are there for the same reason. Like, hey, I just want to have fun, be creative, and like, that's about it.
Yeah. Never delete a photo on your camera. Talk to me about that rule.
So I feel like everyone who starts out in photography probably does this, or maybe it was just me, but you're going through your camera and you're flipping through all the photos and you've got like a pretty small screen. And let's say you take a shot and you're like, ooh, I think that one turned out really well. And you have this emotional hype. And then you review it on your camera LCD screen. And then it's not what you anticipated. The emotional reaction is, this is a lame photo. I'm going to delete it because it's no good. And once you delete it off your SD card, you're never getting it back.
Gone.
And we live in an age where we don't have to use film. It's not like you have only so much.
That's a good point.
Well, yeah, it's digital. So you can literally take hundreds and thousands, depending how big your card is, and you can delete them later. Like, I just feel like that's such an amazing tool. There is absolutely zero reason to delete it off your actual device. And the reel that I made was entirely of photos that I love, that were photos in the moment I looked at the screen and I thought, oh shoot, like,
not what I was looking for.
It was too dark, or like, oh, it's got to be out of focus or something. And then I look on my phone or my computer and then I'm like, oh, like, it's not out of focus. It's actually cute. Or, it was just a point of not being hasty to act on that emotional response of, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. Therefore, it's like no good.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like the don't judge a book by its cover almost.
Exactly. Yeah.
So speaking of reels, what are your thoughts on reels and all this video content on social media?
Oh,
be honest.
So, I think reels are that's just how it's going to be. I'm at a point of resignation with reels. I don't love them. I think they can be fun. I make reels, obviously, sometimes, but I don't keep them on my grid. I put them in the reels tab because I just don't like how they look. I wish, deep down that Instagram just kind of stayed how it used to be, 10 years ago, where it was just, you just posted a photo because you liked it, know?
It was different from Facebook. All it was just photos.
Just photos.
Almost all happy. 10 years ago, at least.
Yeah. And I reels can really be fun, but I think it's just, Instagram is trying to stay relevant. Yeah. And I understand you have to evolve and change with the culture and, going more the way of how TikTok is. Like, I understand that makes sense probably from a business perspective, but as a consumer who is a photographer and who really just loves seeing quality photographs in Instagram, I never see photos anymore unless I have those friends. I make a point of going to their pages. Yeah, and
unless you're actually looking for them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, same thing.
Literally, if I scroll through the feed, then it's just reels, and it kind of makes me die inside. But again, it's the way it is, and I think Peter McKinnon said something in a video recently of just you either just need to accept reels or just get off Instagram. There's nothing.
Fair point.
Yeah. And so I've kind of stopped complaining about them, even though deep down I'm just I don't like them. Yeah. But they're here. Yeah. And that's that.
That's a good way to put it. You either got to accept them or get off Instagram.
Yep. There's nothing you can do to fight it. So. Yeah.
What do you think is the best part about owning a dog?
I think for me, just having, one of my favorite parts is watching them enjoy what we're doing. So if we're camping and they're enjoying that, like I get a lot of satisfaction out of that, and seeing them enjoy life, because I do feel like dogs just experience the world so differently, and they just live very in the moment. And I'm someone who constantly likes to be thinking ahead and planning ahead. So looking at my dogs, just being there in the moment, enjoying whatever we're doing, is a good reminder for me of just like, stop focusing so much on everything that has to happen later. Just like be here in the moment and enjoy whatever it is that we're doing. And I think they're a good reminder of that. Also, like, I feel like dogs teach us a lot of, they teach us a lot about where places we need to grow are. Like, I am not a super patient person, so what do? I have a dog named Benny who has all of these issues that are going to take so long to work through. Like, that requires a lot of patience. So that's something that's actively growing me as a person and helping me be more patient in all areas of my life through this animal here who's forcing me to grow in that.
I absolutely love that. I think it's awesome. I don't think a lot of people understand that aspect of you learning from them as well. And for instance, like, or your example with Benny, like, you know, that taught you a lot of patience. So I think that's incredible. I think it's absolutely awesome. And I think a lot of people don't understand, you know, I see it, our CEO, he just got a dog. Well, it's been about a year now, and he was not a dog person before, so it's kind of funny. But now he like absolutely loves, and he's just got this, I mean, it's little Hermes, he's this big.
Oh, I see him on your Instagram all the time.
Exactly. But it's funny because you can tell like he genuinely loves him and the connection he has, which, you know, he loves that now because he's able to put that into his work and look at things from a different point of view now, which is awesome.
For sure.
Lastly, I wanted to ask you if you could give, whether it's just a couple of tips or if you have a bunch of tips, if somebody's thinking about getting a dog, and they want to, you know, be able to handle the dog at a very high level. To me, from an outsider looking in, I think you handle both your dogs very high level. They're very well mannered. When you ask them to do something, they do something. What would you recommend? Like, what do you think would be a great starting point for somebody, and how would they be able to continue something like that?
Yeah, I have a few things. I think the most important thing, though, is to just be prepared for owning a dog. I am not a huge fan of, you know, giving puppies as gifts type thing. Like, I feel like a dog is such a serious commitment and a very long commitment, you know, 10 to 15 years if you're lucky. So that isn't something that you should just do on a whim. So I'd say number one is just, you know, you can certainly act in the spur of the moment like we did, but again, we had been thinking about it and processing, and we knew that we were prepared to get a dog. So answering that question for you and your family, I think, is number one. And like you said, like, you don't have a dog because your priority is your kids and your family right now. So I think that's like very wise to know where you are and to know what is the best decision. The next thing would probably be to, if you are able and have the resources to work with a trainer, puppy classes, if you're getting a puppy or if you're adopting a dog in any stage, really, having a trainer is so good, not just for direction, but I mean, just the emotional and moral support that you need. Because I'm ashamed to say that, like, I like called my trainer crying before because I was so overwhelmed of just like, this dog is stressing me out so much. And like, you know, just having her there as a presence and like someone who just knows what to say. I don't have to second guess myself. Having a resource like a trainer, or if you're not able to financially or for whatever reason use a trainer, having you know, YouTube channels like Tom Davis or other amazing trainers out there who really know what they're doing and who have a lot of experience. I'd say that is definitely really, really important if you're considering getting a dog, just having a plan for the training and what that looks like and what you're able to do. And also, I would honestly say crate training. And I'm not just saying that because like you guys are a crate company, but I think about the number one most used tool that I have for my dogs is the crate. And it has, it's so versatile, and it really has just made dog ownership so easy in that sense, because having their own space, having the ability to put them away if we need to, or have them be calm, or just so many reasons. So crate training, the correct way and making it a positive thing for the dog is super, super important. And then I guess last thing would just be, I would say just, your dog is a dog and not a human. So don't expect them to understand you as a human would understand you. Being clear, with your commands. Like, for instance, Pepper's very intuitive. Like, I could talk to her and I feel like she sort of understands what I'm saying. And Benny just doesn't.
Just looking for food.
Yeah. If I'm talking to him, he just wants to be right next to me. Like, oh, you're interacting with me, you know?
Yeah.
But for me, it's like when we're training, I have like a very, very, very small vocabulary that I use with him, because I'm only using words that have meaning and he understands. And I don't want to humanize him and expect him to understand my tone or inflection if I use other words. Like, I make it very clear and consistent. So just treating your dogs like an actual dog and being clear and consistent with how you communicate to them, and not expecting them to just understand you.
That makes sense. And probably to some degree too, I think it kind of leads off of that is figuring out what motivates them. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the same thing with communicating with them, is what motivates them. You know, like for Benny, it's food. Mm-hmm. What is it for Pepper?
Probably her environment.
Okay.
She really is just gratified by her environment. So if I'm having her focus on something else, the reward is letting her go free and sniff.
Okay.
And for Benny, it's giving him the treat. So, yeah, that's a really good point, just knowing what motivates the dog. Pepper's definitely more toy-driven than Benny. So when we're fetching, I'll use the ball that we're fetching with as a training tool for Pepper. If I want Pepper to do something or do some commands, I'll use that recreational time of just playing fetch to incorporate some training for her, because it's a good opportunity. And actually, one more thing. The other is to actually utilize the everyday things you do with your dog as an opportunity to train. So what I mean by that is hand feeding their meals and using that as a training session. That was such a big deal for Benny. He loves working for his meals, and like, he is so laser focused, and it's different than treats. I can't really explain it, but that hand feeding all of his meals for the first few months, it was a lot of extra time and effort, but it just helped with our bond so much, helped with engagement, and like even the water bowl. My theory and his trainer's theory is that he actually was underwatered in his previous homes, and he had just kind of this unhealthy obsession with water. So I found out pretty quickly that he was obsessed with it, but also he struggles with submission peeing, which is like a involuntary response to being scared or just insecure about something. And so having to monitor his water intake was a big deal. So using the water bowl as a training opportunity, that just kind of looked like me putting him in a sit in the corner of the kitchen, filling up the water bowl, putting it on the ground, making him wait, and then releasing him and letting him drink. And that's how I watered him for the first few months, just because he needed to learn that, you know, the water was there for him. He didn't need to like get crazy about it. And he also didn't need to drink too much, because then he would throw up and make a mess. So that was a really great training opportunity for him. And of course now I leave water out for him, and it's no big deal now, but it took those months of literally using every opportunity like the water bowl to instill like the structure and the boundaries.
Okay, lastly, if anybody wants to follow you, see anything of Benny and Pepper's, the photography, maybe some reels now, where can they find you?
On Instagram, we are at tales of Pepper and Benny.
All right. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Nope, just thanks so much for having me. This is super fun, and I'm always happy to talk about dogs and photography, so I'll come back anytime.
All right, everyone. There you have it. Another Impact podcast with Katie Woodin. We hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment below. Feel free to give us a follow on Instagram. Remember, this episode is brought to you by ImpactDogCrates.com. Thank you.